Okay, so I'm going to try to clarify a few things that I think were really confusing on Monday to more than just one of you. There was quite a few, I think, that were impacted by it. So first of all, let's talk about the poor language use of the term shadow shapes. I realized later on what I'm thinking of when I'm thinking of shadow shapes. I'm not necessarily thinking of areas in sun and areas in shadow, which of course that's what everybody else would be thinking of. That makes perfect sense to anyone. So then when I told you guys to go ahead and start by painting, starting just with the shadow shapes, of course that was wildly confusing, and a bunch of you ended up with just like all of these tiny little random details all over your painting that did not at all help you be able to get your bearings on where you were in the painting, which is what I was hoping. What I was actually referring to were the halftones, which is a much more useful word, and I need to work on changing that habit of mine of calling them shadow shapes. So when we've got our scale and we have kind of like our darkest darks here, we have our half darks, we have our half lights, and then this is kind of our lightest lights, and you know, like the total white is over here. But these areas right here, things that are these values are what I'm talking about. Because it kind of like when you start in the middle, then you kind of are just getting the general overall shape in place of kind of like the whole, like that whole row of trees, right? You're kind of just getting all of that in place and kind of locked in. And then you can lift things back off to go a little bit lighter and get into like your lighter shapes, and you can add dark shadow details later on. So I am so sorry for being so confusing about that. And then of course, when I grabbed your brush and I was like painting these areas that are in full sun, calling them shadow shapes, I understand the confusion. So that's number one. Just to reiterate, so this is what I'm talking about. So even though a bunch of those trees were in sun, you can see the trees on the right are a half dark and the trees on the left are a half light. And so those are half tones. Even though they're in full sun, they're still significantly darker. And so I'm talking about is blocking in kind of that whole mass of that value specifically, not just actual shadows and actual sun spots. This is what I mean by that. So I'm going to go back later. I'm like covering up this whole area of trees, but I'm going to go back later and I'm going to lift some of those lighter areas. We'll maybe add a little bit of water on that left side right now because there's that half light kind of meeting a half dark. Here I'm going back in with that clean, damp brush, mostly squeezed water out of it, and I'm just lifting off a little bit of the lightest spots where those trees are. Now I'm just adding in like the darker shadows, so those darker darks. So that gives you at least an idea of what I'm talking about. The second thing that I think was majorly confusing, there is no rule of your shadows are always blue and your lightest lights are always yellow. So ignore the whole your lights are yellow, your darks are blues. I was trying to make it simpler and just kind of create like a real straightforward thing, and I just don't think that was helpful at all, because obviously the scene you're looking at is not necessarily simple like that. So instead, what I want you to think about is, like, if you're looking at a wall of greens, does this have more yellow or more blue in it? So for example, in the scene that we were looking at, and I'll pull up an example here in a minute, I'd be looking at whether or not the grass versus the water, kind of like the muck that was sitting on the water. I'd be looking at which one of these has more blue and yellow. When I look at it, the muck has more yellow to it, and the green grass has not only more blue in it, but it also is much more intensely saturated. Okay, so So I'd be looking at those things. Now, value-wise, they were almost exactly the same. So then this is where paying attention to how much warm and how much blue is really useful, because that's going to be what's going to help kind of differentiate those two areas. So, sorry. So I hope that that is helpful, and I am so sorry again for being so confusing. It's not you, it's me. Last thing I'll say is something that you do want to hold on to from Monday were the rules of atmosphere. Don't cling to them before you look at what's in front of you. So that whole things get lighter as they get further away, things get bluer as they get further away, and things become less chromatic as they get further away, so less saturated. Those three things are almost always true. There are, of course, some cases where there's special lighting, especially in the evening, like dusk and dawn, like are definitely can throw some different situations in front of you. So those things are meant to be tools that help you kind of figure out where to go, especially if something's, if you're trying to decide where to push darker, push lighter, kind of like in the middle of the painting and such. However, don't cling to those rules before you look at what's in front of you. So you want to start with looking at what's in front of you, but then just keep those kind of rules of atmosphere in the back of your mind as like things that you can refer to if you ever get stuck, things that you can refer to if you're trying to figure out what's going on with your painting and what's going to help it read better and more clearly. So those are useful, those are helpful, but there are times where you're going to find those things, like for example the yellow that we saw, maybe it was kind of towards the middle when the things closest to us were in shadow and the things further were in direct sun. Those were obviously way more yellow than the things right in front of you. Now the things right in front of you were definitely still darker, and they were definitely more chromatic. So those other two rules were really useful and helpful. But yeah, those rules aren't to be clung to and held on to before you just look at what you're painting and see what's in front of you. I hope that's helpful, and do not feel bad if you did not understand what on earth was happening on Monday or what I was talking about. More than likely, it was me and the way that I was communicating it. It probably was not like, you're not stupid, you're not dumb. It's not that at all. And watercolor isn't just like massively confusing. It actually, like art theory and color theory and all of that stuff, has order to it, has structures. There are reasons why paintings work and there are reasons why paintings don't. And there's almost always like a very simple explanation that you can find as to why that is. So yeah, don't be hard on yourself. Instead, you can chalk that up to your instructor had a really bad day. It was very confusing in the way that she was communicating to you. So I hope you guys have a great week. Just kind of practice a little bit with color matching. That would be a really great thing. Try to play around with combining different colors on your color palette. You know, just like mix colors together and see what happens. Just make notes and pay attention to that, and that will help you out a lot for this next time. See you guys on Monday.